Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You've reached the No Name Cinema Society, the film review show that dares to dig a little bit deeper. It is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, and we are in the middle of our finale week. It's our Oscar preview. Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan Betzler here at my home in Los Angeles, and this is our Oscar preview in which we go over the Oscar races for this year, 2022, the films of 2022. We're going to tell you who we think will win, our predictions, who we think should win out of the nominees, and who we think should have been nominated that was not. And we're going to go through a lot of categories as far as that's concerned. As I mentioned last night, other obligations like the screenplay readings prevented us from having any regular season reviews as initially planned. And so just like last night, we are using one of these finale episodes to introduce a new member to the fold. And both of tonight's co-hosts are doing their first Oscar preview show. And so without further ado, first the vet. She's an Irish banshee who likes to sit around talking with other women like her drunk friend Leslie. Kelly O'Malley is here.
Hi.
That's all she's got. She'll have a lot more to say later.
I'm excited.
Our newest member, in one universe, he's the king of rock and roll, and yet in another, he's on a luxury cruise to Paris where he hopes to get a new outfit. Ladies and gentlemen, Angelo Santos is here.
Hey, everyone. New outfit.
It was a reference to Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. So I'm trying to incorporate the shows. But the point is, welcome to the show, Angelo, to the No Name Cinema Society, and Kelly, Angelo, Kelly. Kelly, wasn't that long ago where you were the newest member of the No Name Cinema Society?
I know. What's happened?
I know. Now you're the vet. You heard me. I called you the vet earlier. Next up is our drinking slide, and the fans really love this. This is the things that you drink to when we do them on the show. Anytime I say contrived, contrivance, all time, verisimilitude, or diegesis, and anytime Kelly makes fun of Devin, those are the things that you drink to. She makes fun of me more than she makes fun of Devin these days, I feel.
I was going to say, I wonder if perhaps the fans would like to vote for a new one with me. So that I don't have to make fun of Devin when he's not even here right now. I feel bad.
So anyway, so who's drinking with me? I got Elysian Space Dust. This is what I've had all week, and I'll have again tomorrow. Kelly, what you got?
I'm drinking with you.
I have a Golden Road Mango beer in my O'Malley Tavern glass in honor of my Irish roots and my Irish family members.
Awesome. Well,
but I'm also drinking a Red Bull.
Okay. Excellent. Angelo, what do you got?
I have a Malbec.
Oh, nice. We use the Academy-approved list. The Academy sends out a list of all the films eligible for Best Picture in any given year. And this year, that number was 302 films. Here's a chart of the amount of movies everybody watched in any given year. Just cutting for myself and the original members, in terms of the newest members, last year, Matt Polis set a record in 2021 by watching 73 films. Normally, the all-time low had been Alex in 2019, only watching 23. But just last night, Max set a new low, only watching 14 films, and crafted a top 10 out of those 14 films. So I'm just reporting the news. I wasn't thrilled about it, but we got through the show anyway.
Oh my God, Max is my favorite. I love him.
No comment. But so let's see. Hopefully these guys beat 14. I hope they beat 23, quite frankly. And so without further ado, we'll find out how many out of 302 films they watched. Angelo, you're first. What's your number?
My number is 41.
41. Very good for her first year. That's very impressive. And of course, Kelly, very famously, when she did the 1986 in review last year, she set a record in terms of classic films watched. She watched 86 films from 1986 by design. Kelly, what's your number this year for 2022?
I want you to hold on to that feeling from last year. 32. I'm sorry.
32. Hey, look, it's not the all-time low or even second to all-time lows.
But I'm disappointed in myself, but it's just the reality of my life right now. So 30.
I totally understand. And in terms of my number, and if you watched the top 10 last night, you know what my number is. But just to reiterate for those that didn't, because some people just watch the Oscar preview during Oscar week to fill out their ballots and then watch the top 10 after that. Last year I did 103 films out of 282. This year I got an even hundo, 100 films from 2022 out of the 302. So those are the numbers. So that gives you some context. And so that's all the setup, guys. I'm ready to go straight into the categories. Are you guys good?
Yep.
All right. First category up, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be, I believe, It is Best Cinematography. And so the first thing is predictions. Often we look to the Guild Awards to predict the Oscars. However, German film All Quiet on the Western Front was ineligible for most Guild Awards, including this one. It is one of those films that everyone around town is talking about, and I expect it to take home a lot of the craft categories, including this one. I'm saying All Quiet on the Western Front wins. Does anybody disagree?
No.
All right, so we're all on the same page, and so you can feel confident, or more confident anyway, locking that in your ballot. Does anybody say that it should win?
I say it should win.
All right, take it away. Why?
To shoot a war, especially when you're in the trenches, and there were a lot of good one-shot takes as well. You just felt like you were in the middle of the war, regardless if you're in the trenches or if you were at their home base. I just felt it was part of the story, more so than the other.
What I failed to say, in my top 5 cinematography of the year, I've got 2 of these 5 nominees at the Oscars, and the other one is All Quiet in the Western Front. I actually have it as my 5th favorite cinematography of the year. I think it is a gorgeous film, so I can't really disagree with you. I just have one of these other nominees a little bit higher. It's not so much the one-shot things that were as impressive to me. It's some of the lighting for the non-battle scenes I thought was actually
that's what I mean. Like when they were like home base and by the fire and then eating, and even like in the quarters of the the leaders and all that. So
Kelly, what do you have as should win in this category?
I was really torn, but Empire of Light.
Legendary Roger Deakins, after losing for most of his career, won twice recently, once for 1917, the other for Blade Runner 2049. But he can only win if there's a number in the title of the film, apparently. But Kelly, what did you like about Empire of Light, the cinematography?
I just thought I was just watching something beautiful. The story itself to me was not consistent, but I liked what some of the shots were doing to try to help it. But I loved the lighting and the color and the contrast. Like, it all just felt very much, I just enjoyed it.
We won't get into the story because it was a top 5 film for me last night. It didn't make my top 5 cinematography, although I enjoy it. The 3 greatest DPs you often hear about are Roger Deakins, Chivo, and Janusz Kaminski. And so Deakins, like, everything he does is pretty magical. So it's hard to disagree with it. It just didn't make my top 5. Angelo, anything on the cinematography of Empire of Light?
I know I agree with Kelly where it was beautiful. And there is one shot I remember, particularly when they were out in the balcony for the first time and watching the fireworks.
Interestingly, as much as we're sort of agreeing on these picks, we do have 3 different choices for what should win in this category. I just mentioned Chivo a second ago. He usually collaborates with this director, but instead, Alejandro González Iñárritu went with Darius Khondji to make the film Bardo. To me, the results are no less miraculous. So much depth in the frames, texture, shape in the lighting, interplay of light and shadow. It's somewhat episodic, and each segment is shot differently without feeling totally disconnected from the whole. I thought it was some exquisite work. Anybody have anything on Bardo?
Some great one-shots too in Bardo as well.
I haven't seen it. I imagine it's beautiful.
We move right along. I love it. What should have been nominated that was not? Angelo, what do you got?
Oh, don't laugh at me. I have the Batman.
I have to laugh at you because it was actually nominated at the Guild Awards. It took the slot that would have been All Quiet on the Western Front. I don't know that I can disagree. That kind of darkness isn't something that appeals to me as much, but it was very consistent. It was very unique. It fit the piece very well.
Yeah, that's why
I say it
fit the piece.
It's just not as pleasing to the eye to me as much. Kelly, what about you on the Batman?
I don't have any qualms.
Kelly, what is your should have been nominated that was not?
You're gonna hate me. Matilda.
That's one I did not see.
I did not see that either.
I felt confident out of 100 films, I would have seen all of your 32, but I guess not.
I was really impressed with it. Everything felt like it was working towards the story. It felt rich and magical, and it felt like it just really lifted up the whole piece.
And for the audience, the actual title is Roald Dahl's Matilda the Musical, and it's on Netflix if you're interested. So now it's my turn for should have been nominated that would not, and you guys probably haven't seen this film. I'm going with the film Devotion from DP Eric Messerschmidt. The flying scenes in the film are an obvious standout. Last night I suggested they were even stronger than Dunkirk. But it wasn't just those scenes. Everything else in the film looked gorgeous to me, but not just for gorgeous sake. Motivated by period and location while avoiding the modern trap of oversaturating the yellows from tungsten lights in the night scenes. Visual satisfaction without the need to call attention to itself. Has anybody seen Devotion?
No, I missed it.
So now the question for you guys is your preference the one that you had that should win out of the nominees, or is your preference the one should have been nominated?
Well, should have been nominated. I was just thinking.
Matilda, best cinematography of the year for Kelly is Matilda. For you, Angelo, is it the Batman or is it All Quiet on the Western Front?
It is All Quiet on the Western Front.
And for me, Devotion was my number 1 cinematography of the year, and Bardo was number 3. and just the best out of those nominees. So yeah, that and All Quiet in the Western Front was my 5. If you're keeping track at home. So moving right along, guys. I love it. I love the speed. Let's keep it going. Best Adapted Screenplay. All Quiet in the Western Front, again, isn't eligible at the Guild, so it could be an X factor. However, the general feeling is the Screenplay Award is the consolation prize for leaving the Best Director race all male. So the prediction, I believe, is Women Talking is going to win this category for Sarah Polley. Does anybody disagree?
I may. I think All Quiet on the Western Front has some buzz to it. It might have that sort of nostalgia thing because it's a retelling of classic novel.
And a classic movie, an Oscar-winning movie.
Yeah.
Best Picture-winning movie.
It may sneak out a win.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, it's an X factor. It's hard to tell because it's not eligible. But I do think that there is a groundswell to recognize this movie. We've been talking a little bit.
And Sarah Polley, too.
But I mean, I did go back and forth on this in terms of predictions. So the next question is, what should win? And so, Angelo, you're going to start again. What should win out of these nominees?
I'm sticking with All Quiet on the Western Front for the same reasons that I gave before.
Okay. I suspect a lot of the love for this movie comes from those that hadn't seen the 1930 American original. I don't know. Have you guys seen the 1930 original? I know it's old, but we did a show on it back in episode 13.3. And not only is it exquisite, it holds up. For me, All Quiet in the Western Front has great source material. It's a great book. I didn't feel like it was fresh enough. You know, similar to how I felt about West Side Story last year. Why are we remaking this very classic film? It's not a bad movie. To me, it never came close to connecting with the soul the way the best art does it and the way the original does. It surprisingly lacked the nuance to me that the original does. And it relies on the cinematography and a lot of the technical categories, but the script didn't speak to me as much. In fact, it was a little long, which makes me credit the 1930 version. The 1930 version did a better job of consolidating when you think about the art of adaptation. Kelly, anything on All Quiet in the Western Front, or is that also your choice?
No, I didn't watch it, mainly, honestly, for what you just said. Like, when I was going through of, like, what do I have time to see? I didn't really feel the need to watch a remake.
All right, Angelo, rebuttal on All Quiet in the Western Front.
No, I think your points are valid.
Kelly, what is your choice that should win out of these categories?
Top Gun Maverick. Oh, I don't think it was perfect, but I felt like it was one of the few movies I actually had fun watching this year. It had flaws, but I don't feel like the flaws insulted my intelligence.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because that's exactly how I feel about it. There's not many films I hated this year. I didn't like that many, but I didn't hate too many except for Top Gun Maverick. It's one of the 2 or 3 films I really hated. And because of the screenplay, the contrivance, especially in the third act. I don't want to give too much away, but I will say it's bad enough that it just so happens that Goose's son is in the mix to begin with. I was willing to go along with that, but then the way events contrived to manipulate that, I was done. Like, talk about a movie jumping the shark to me, and that's total screenplay thing. And it was, like I said, contrived. So we should drink.
Oh, we gotta drink.
Gotta drink.
So that was like huge bells, and I had a real hard time, and I was flabbergasted it got nominated here. Not flabbergasted it got nominated in the tech categories, but I was disappointed in so much of the script, and the dialogue felt very boilerplate to me, and there wasn't specificity in it. Like, I had a lot of issues, and with that, for me particular, I'll let you rebut, but want to give Angelo an opportunity as well.
Oh, I thought Kelly's gonna rebut. I was shocked that it was also nominated for adapted screenplay. I didn't have, I think, as much issues as you did, JP. I want to say it was mindless. It was just fun because I thought it was just a fun Hollywood movie.
I did like the mission itself. I did appreciate, I did think the mission was a good plot thing. All the things were sort of like a little convenient. I mean,
right.
like I said, if it was just the one thing, or if it was just Goose, like it was just adding it on, one thing after another. And to me, that's lazy screenwriting.
I feel like I watched so many movies this year that were so depressing and that were so sad. I'm happy to have seen something that gave me a break.
So it's time for me to talk about my choice. So my choice for adapted screenplay out of these nominees, it did make my top 5 adapted screenplays. I had a lot of issues with the direction of the movie, but I did feel that the screenplay was delicately written by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I'm referring to Living, and it sort of reminded me of his own novel, Remains of the Day, a little bit. There's some overlap in the Venn diagram. The structure of the script underscores the very regimented and episodic search for the meaning of living. Is it about fun and joy? Is it about love and connection? or is it about service and legacy? Didn't love the film, have many issues, but I acknowledge the qualities of the script. It's the only one of the nominees to make my top 5 adapted screenplays of the year, in at number 4.
I'm sure it was a lovely screenplay. I watched it. At that point, I was so over Dead Dads. Like, I couldn't handle it anymore.
Angelo, Living.
I saw the point of it. It was kind of long-winded for me. It was just there.
So it sounds like we can move on to the next thing, which is should have been nominated, that was not. So adapted screenplay, Kelly, what should have been nominated that was not?
Matilda.
I sense a theme, and we can go quickly because I haven't seen it.
Well, I think it really captures like the essence of Roald Dahl and like the worlds he builds. It's layered, right? Because it's the book, but it's also the musical. It just felt like it was able to create a world that still felt like its own. Like it didn't feel like it was just doing a scene because the book said it had to be there or the musical said it had to be there.
Okay. I hope this is the only time that a movie comes up that I haven't seen. I feel embarrassed. Angelo, so you haven't seen it either, so you can go straight to yours. What should have been nominated that was not?
Oh, what should have been nominated was not The Batman.
I sense a theme again.
It was less of a superhero movie to me, it was more of a detective story. Actually, a friend of mine joked that, yeah, The Batman's a great adaptation of Seven. Kind of gave new nuances to the character, especially the villains of the Riddler and Penguin. And Catwoman, actually, too.
I'm middle of the road on the Batman. Like, it's really long. I don't know why it's that long. You know, I don't think it earned that length. I do think that it lacked a certain amount of nuance and character development. I didn't hate it. It never really captured my interest, and, you know, the themes that was trying to circle were a little heavy-handed for me. And you talk about Living just being there. That's how I sort of feel about the Batman. Like, you know, out of 100 movies, it sort of definitely floated towards the middle. Nothing really felt special to me about this particular The Batman. And that's not to, I'm not trying to be just my interpretation, my feeling on it. Kelly, where are you on the Batman?
Well, I see it. Like I love Batman as a character. I like the comics, but also for me, I think it's just hard for me because I so love the Christian Bale ones that it's really hard for me to be open to a new one.
You know, that feels generational because what I was about to say that stopped myself is I'm a Michael Keaton guy. I remain like, you know, I did not enjoy the Christopher Nolan ones. I'll tell you what, I like the Christopher Nolan ones better than this one. Maybe me personally, I'm just having fatigue. In 1989, when the Michael Keaton version came out, it was like fresh and new. Like we hadn't had a Batman in 20 years or whatever. And I mean, I know that was 30 plus years ago now, 34. But I mean, like, how many Batmans have we had in my movie going lifetime? You know, I mean, like between Michael Keaton and then Val Kilmer and then George Clooney and then Christian Bale and then Ben Affleck and then Robert Pattinson. Part of me feels done. Like I didn't thought about that till now, but there wasn't anything new enough about the Batman that really got me excited about the story, the character, the themes. So now it's time for my choice for should have been nominated that was not. And it sounds it sounds like since they watched fewer films that maybe they missed this one. For me, my favorite adapted screenplay of the year is 3,000 Years of Longing from writers George Miller and Augusta Gore. I feel like it's an extremely interesting exploration of desire and spirituality and faith and love. It can get a little esoteric, but I was very impressed with the way the writers connected all the segments and stories in yet another episodic piece. They were distinct sections while still serving the greater whole. I feel like it was consistently interesting without ever being truly emotionally impactful. It did miss my top 10, but it might make a top 15 films of the year. From a screenplay writing point of view, I thought it was really strong. 3,000 Years of Longing from director George Miller and writers George Miller and Augusta Gore. Kelly shaking her head.
I didn't see
it.
Have you at least heard of it, guys?
Yes, because it was on that list.
Yeah.
I thought you guys were Tilda Swinton fans.
Is that the one with Idris Elba? No.
Yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay. I missed that one.
Awesome, guys. Before we move on, I want to make sure I understand your preferences for between your should win and should have been nominated. Kelly, what do you got between Matilda and Top Gun?
Matilda.
You, Angelo, is it The Batman or All Quiet on the Western Front?
It would be All Quiet on the Western Front.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the next category. It is Best Original Screenplay. I actually have 2 of these 5 nominees in my top 5 original screenplays of the year. In terms of predictions, in spite of the momentum of Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think the Academy will recognize that the strength of Banshees of Inisherin is the writing. They love themselves some Martin McDonagh, and he has not won yet. So I think Banshees of Inisherin is going to win here. Does anybody disagree with the prediction, Banshees of Inisherin?
I will disagree ride the Everything Everywhere All at Once train here.
Okay. You think it's just going to be a sweep? Because it's going to win a lot of other awards.
I don't know about a sweep necessarily, but I think it will capture this one. But I mean, this is kind of one of those. I think this is one that it could lose.
Kelly, are you also saying everything everywhere all at once?
Yeah, I'm feeling the same. It could lose, but I'm pretty sure people are really into it.
I do feel like, Angelo, that the Academy has been bigger about spreading things out lately. That's another
Right.
reason why I said women talking. And that's why I'm saying Banshees. But it looks like we're one of the two. And it looks like we're all saying by a hair. You guys are saying everything by a hair, and I'm saying Banshees by a hair. So, Kelly, what do you have for should win out of these 5?
Banshees. I don't even know how to express how good I thought it was. I just can't put it to words, which is funny because it's words. But
I will jump in here and hopefully give you some words, because I too have Banshees of Inisherin. I still feel like the film lacks cinematicism, but I think the writing is absolutely brilliant. It never escapes the theatricality inherent in the writing, but it's still an extremely good story told in a very basic way, and that was enough to place it high for me. So I've also got Banshees of Inisherin. So before we go on, Angelo, is it possible we have a clean sweep?
No.
Could have been our first one of the night.
2 Irish Americans would have to.
There, that's probably what it is.
I would say I didn't like it. It was another one of those, like, okay. Like, I did love the performances.
It was almost like a spiritual experience. I know that sounds weird. Also had to do with the intensity of how good the script was.
It's so layered. The script is so layered.
Like,
and deeply, to your point, deeply rooted in Irish folklore. It definitely felt like part of a legacy in terms of Irish storytelling.
Yeah.
So that's us. We both got Banshees of Inisherin that should win out of these 5. Angelo, what do you have?
That should win out of these 5?
Yeah.
For me, it would be everything. It was a new perspective on the multiverse, plus also a simple story about an immigrant family tried to make it, and then it kind of just blew it up in this kind of extraordinarily weird, fantastical way. From time to time, I always wonder, like, oh, I wonder what my life would be if this happened, at that point in my life, and then would I be here? And it kind of brought that back to me. Explored it in different ways that I never thought.
So this is probably going to happen a few times tonight. This is a film I really disliked and hope never to have to watch again. I presume that people responded to the inventiveness and originality, but I personally found it empty and trite. Bells and whistles to me to trump truth. For something as unconventional as this, one needs to make sure the world building is consistent, and that's important in the screenplay, and I didn't feel that was the case here. The screenwriter seemingly conveniently altering the rules to meet one goal or another. And then there's the existential ennui, which to me gets flushed down the toilet by how overwritten the climax is. Long speeches that were meant to be heartfelt, but came off to me as more of armchair philosophy. A collection of Hallmark greetings thrown into a script. The missed opportunity that I saw was a wasted chance to explore the role of the soul in our existence. That's where more character dimension could have come in handy, because the flat, derivative nature of the characters in each of their respective universes made them feel soulless. I wanted to see more than a cursory change in wardrobe than each Evelyn, each Wayne, and each Joy, but still feel their essential self busting through. I know my readers, viewers, and listeners get frustrated that I don't see things the way everyone else does. I know people that say this is the greatest film they've ever seen, literally. I don't mean to be contrarian. It would be a lot easier for me to go along with the pack, but I can't in good conscience. This one in particular I found to be frustratingly obnoxious. Angelo will have his chance to rebut, but Kelly, the screenplay of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I really liked the premise. I still felt confused I felt like the stuff with the daughter didn't make sense all the time, of when she was her and when she was this other character. Like, I felt like in the beginning, it wasn't clear that was going on, but then I felt like we were being told this is always her. I don't know. So for me, it was unclear. I enjoyed the film for the most part, but for me, it was like too sappy in the end. I was like, ugh. I felt like too dramatic.
All of a sudden, too.
Yeah, and if we were going to get to the place where it was about the mom just fully accepting the daughter where she is, and that having that beautiful moment, I wanted that threaded through a little more carefully.
Totally tacked on.
So that I cared, because the problem was I didn't actually care. I was more into like, ooh, the world building and ooh, who's this version of the character, than I cared about the actual connection between mom and daughter. The ending just felt forced on me. Like, now you have to feel this emotion. So there's so much I liked. And I even liked the performances. I felt like the script didn't help them. I felt like they had to work too hard.
I agree with pretty much all of that. It's fascinating to me that we'd be on the same page in this category. So, Angelo, this is your opportunity to rebut.
My opportunity to rebut. I don't know. I think I didn't feel the way you guys did, where I think All at Once maybe probably was too fast, like that chapter. The fantastical point of something so, like, a simple story between families and dealing with your generational differences and also between cultural differences because the daughter's American. She doesn't really kind of associate with her Chinese background or heritage. But yeah, to fully comprehend, it does take a couple viewings.
I wonder if multiple viewings will uncover more inconsistencies. That's what I wonder. Guys, it's time to move on to what should have been nominated that was not. It looks like it's going to be Angelo. What should have been nominated that was not for Best Original Screenplay?
For me, it should have been The Menu. I kind of appreciated the dark satire of the script, and I loved how it sort of subtly made fun of food culture.
I didn't hate The Menu as much because I thought it was really well directed, but the one thing I did dislike about it was the screenplay as it happens. You know, I'm going to say the word again, guys.
Contrived.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's such a contrived gimmick, ultimately. Looking at it under a microscope, it raises several eyebrows. Because with the exception of maybe the chef and Margot, pretty much all the characters are caricatures. Like I said, the direction was really, really strong. But for all its allegorical potential, I wonder if The Menu winds up mostly being about filling your life with what you love and asking what the point is if you don't. There was an interesting takeaway, but as far as themes go, it comes in a little late in the game from a writing point of view. Like everything else in the script, it was overly controlled to the point of being on rails. And so I don't think to me, it's not enough to be Oscar worthy. It brings more to the table than a lot of the films I saw this year. I would have it above the Batman, for example. But its flaw to me, its fatal flaw, film-wise, is the script. Kelly, what do you got on The Menu?
Oh, I had so much fun watching The Menu. I was laughing. I was scared.
Right?
That was good.
Yep.
I have fond feelings for The Menu. I didn't think about it when I was coming up with script, but I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I'm the odd man out once again. Best Original Screenplay. What do you think should have been nominated?
Vengeance.
What is it called?
Vengeance.
I have no idea.
Oh, PJ Novak. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Did you not see it?
I definitely did not see it. I vaguely now remember hearing about it, but tell me about Vengeance.
Oh my God. I watched it 3 times. It's this look at like how these two different cultures and how we get pitted against each other, but really like we're falling into the trap of like letting the people who are actually in control pit us against each other instead of actually just like looking at what the actual issue is, right? And it's funny and it's heartfelt. It's looking at some of these differences, but it's never talking down at people. I think it was like fun and beautiful, and I just hope everybody goes and watches it.
Okay, well, and I can't believe this keeps happening. In fact, all of your choices for should have been nominated are films that I've not seen. I think, and you saw the script, you saw my list, so it lists all the things I've seen. So I think you're specifically, to keep things moving, choosing films that I did not watch. I'm joking.
No,
I'm not going to feel too bad because you haven't seen my choice for best, original screenplay that wasn't nominated. So out of all the autobiographical or semi-autobiographical films of this year, and there were many, none of them was more impactful to me than Bardo. It's unabashedly derivative of Fellini, if only the latter were political instead of being more interested in the sexual and the religious. However, its self-awareness of the origin of the style, structure, and tone prevents it from feeling unoriginal so much as a very understanding homage, like borrowing a tool from a neighbor to complete a task, which in this case is the story of a struggling Mexican journalist and filmmaker. It's inspired by, but not completely stolen from Fellini. Almost every scene is a reference to one Fellini film or another, if not several at a time, but most scenes are extremely successful in communicating their ideas about globalism and economics, along with the more personal struggles with depression, family, and existentialism. One thing the film shares with Fellini is the main character's relationship to his own art. What's new is the love-hate relationship with his home country and the problems of patriotism. That's where globalism comes in. Does where you are born determine who you are? Are you obligated to feel a sense of loyalty to that place? And in the case of this narrator, both of his homes feel corrupt and broken, which only adds to the depression. It covers so much ground in an intelligent and thought-provoking way. Guys, it sounded like from before that you have not seen Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths.
Nope.
I watched the opening scenes. That's about it.
Why did you stop?
I didn't have time to watch the whole thing. It's a long movie.
Okay, there you go. All right, so now we have to choose Best Original Screenplay of the Year. Kelly, is it Banshees of Inisherin or Vengeance?
It's Banshees.
Angelo, Everything Everywhere All at Once or The Menu?
The Menu.
All right, and for me, it is also Banshees of Inisherin is the greatest original screenplay of the year. Bardo at number 2 for me. That's this category. Time to talk about some acting, and we're lucky to have lucky enough to have an actor with us here, starting with Best Supporting Actress, guys. I've got one of these 5 nominees in my top 5, which you'll hear very shortly. SAG threw a wrench in this one by awarding Jamie Lee Curtis this award. However, I do wonder if the 2 Everything Everywhere actresses might cancel each other out. It's closer than I initially thought, but Angela Bassett won everything else leading up to this, so I'm feeling Bassett still squeaks this one out for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Does anyone disagree with Angela Bassett as the winner here?
I don't disagree, but yeah, I agree with you where Jamie Lee Curtis is. That's a little
She's gaining. She's gaining.
Yeah.
She just might be a little late. Does anybody have Angela Bassett as should win?
Yes, but for me, it's more for she's a veteran.
Oh, you're one of those. You're one of those that don't.
Yeah, with this category, yes.
But that's it. There's nothing about the performance.
It was an Angela Bassett performance. She's very powerful. She's very stirred, and the range is not that grand. She wears a lot of her emotions on her face.
Well, let's hope she wears emotions on her face as an actor. I'm not going to call it bad performance. I saw a lot of movies and I saw a lot of great supporting performances, and she had that great speech. She performed what's on the page, and that's fine. I just saw actors that had a lot more opportunity to dig deeper on some characters and even some smaller screen time. So, I think it's a fine performance. It suited the movie. It just didn't strike me as exceptional. Kelly, anything on Angela Bassett?
I thought it was a really great performance, but I wouldn't put it as my favorite performance.
All right, Kelly, you're up. Who should win out of these 5 nominees?
Carrie Condon.
The strangest thing that we will agree once again. I also have Carrie Condon as who should win in this category, and he's the one performance out of these 5 that made my top 5. I don't have much to say about this one. It is complete, fully realized performance, capturing the vacillation between compassion for her brother and frustration with her brother. Mix into that her own needs, desires, regrets, and fears, and you get a performance that makes the most out of its screen time. I thought Carrie Condon was excellent. Sounds like you did as well.
I thought she really embodied the character and what the character needed, and really found a lot of colors within that, and had a beautiful vulnerability in it that wasn't indulgent. It really very much served the story.
Yeah, that's a fabulous point. Angelo, rebuttal on Carrie Condon.
No, I liked her performance. I felt like her performance was very nuanced, and I liked how you could see also in her face.
It's interesting, and as good as she is, she's very, very good. She's still my 4th favorite supporting actress performance of the year, so we'll get into that in a moment. So now we can move on to who should have been nominated that was not, and I think Angela's more excited about this one. Kelly gets to go first. Who should have been nominated that was not for Best Supporting Actress?
This one was hard because I feel like this is where I really didn't see enough, but I really did like Lashana Lynch's performance as Mrs. Honey and Matilda.
So all 4 should have been nominated for films that I have not seen.
Yeah, it was strong. It was vulnerable. She had an openness. She hit all the beats that needed to be there. Kind of held when you're dealing with kid actors and you're dealing with fantastical stuff, and she's kind of the straight man in it, and she really held that and kept that warmth without it ever becoming dull, or she just was brought this light, this warmth and sparkle, while still kind of holding space for the character that isn't big.
Yeah, I mean, I had Lashana Lynch in my top 5 supporting actresses of 2019.
Yeah,
I worked in Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And she was excellent. It's funny that's who I had as a great performance in a Marvel film.
Marvel movie.
Not so much Angela Bassett. But I didn't see Matilda, neither did Angelo. It is connected to me to some degree, and I'll go over that in a second. But Angelo seemed more excited about his choice for who should have been nominated. So Angelo, supporting actress who should have been nominated that was not.
I was hoping Dolly De Leon from Triangle of Sadness would be nominated. She's a Filipina actress, so I've never seen any of her performances. I've never heard of her, but just to see a Filipina actress kind of get that notoriety was exciting. A lot of Filipino acting is over the top, and she did not do that, which I appreciated a lot. I just thought she stole the movie, and I was very disappointed that she did not get nominated.
That was one of the main omissions that was talked about on Oscar Day, the fact that she didn't squeak in there, because she was sort of on that short list of people that were talked about. She got a Golden Globe nomination. But I mean, I agreed she did not overact. It might be more of a character thing. I don't know if she steals the movie for the third. I think the character does. But acting wise, I don't know if it had as much to it. That for me, the whole thing about all the performances in Triangle of Sadness, I don't know if I would have shortlisted any of them. As much as I respect the film, and it's one of my favorite filmmakers, I just felt like it was almost like the menu, almost intentionally, two-dimensional from the point of view that the character's almost allegorical. You know what I mean? The whole thing is a satirical allegory. So, she performed that well, but when evaluating performances, it didn't have as much meat on that particular bone for me. And I'm not saying she did anything poorly. She did exactly what was asked of her. But again, listing, the top 10, 11 action performances of the year, I didn't really consider her for that reason. Kelly.
Oh my God, I forgot about her. She's just so incredible in that.
I disagree a little bit, but again, not her fault. All right, it's time for my should have been nominated. That was not. And it's connected to Lashana Lynch a little bit in the sense that Lashana Lynch is in this movie that I'm going to talk about. To me, one of the major finds of the year, acting-wise, was young Theso Mbedu from The Woman King, who gives a performance that I found reminiscent to Zhang Ji in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She's natural and emotive and fascinating and detailed without seemingly trying. It's one of the best performances of the year in any category in my mind. I hope to see a lot more of her in the future. Did anybody see The Woman King?
I saw it. JB, I don't understand why nobody talked about her.
She was pretty special, right? It
was like, who is this girl? Going toe to toe with Viola Davis, almost taking the movie away from her. So yeah, I agree with you.
I love that. All right, so Angela, the question is it sounds like you prefer Dolly De Leon to Angela Bassett.
I do, yes.
Okay, and so Kelly, for you, it is Kerry Condon or is it Lashana Lynch?
Kerry Condon.
And for me, between Kerry Condon and Theso Mbedu, I have Theso Mbedu as my favorite of the year and Kerry Condon fourth. So Theso Mbedu, top supporting actress performance of the year. Moving right along. I feel like it's going fast, guys. I don't know about you.
I love it.
All right, it's time for Best Supporting Actor. This one is one of the real locks of the evening. Ke Huy Quan has won everything except BAFTA. Everyone loves the story of his resurgence. This is a lock, like I said, at least from my point of view. Let's see if these guys agree. Does anybody disagree that Ke Huy Quan is going to win Best Supporting Actor?
He will win, yes.
He's going to win, yeah.
All right, so we're all agreed on that. Does anybody think he should?
I think he should.
All right, tell me why.
He got the opportunity to play kind of different facets of this character, and he did it well. I saw his ability to be his character in different multiverses.
This goes back to one of my other criticisms of the film. My issue with all the other different characters is they're all two-dimensional. Like, I understand they're play acting at different things, but I mean, none of those things had depth outside of the original Wayne. Even that, I have some questions about depth and dimension. So it comes back to the screenplay. Some of these other actors had better opportunities and delivered on those, and those are the ones that I considered. So it's more of a screenplay issue, and I already complained about that for me. That steered me away from him, voting him in this category. Kelly, Ke Huy Quan and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
He's not who I would pick, but I think I did enjoy. I felt like he had the best because he didn't have as much I don't think how to say that. Bells and whistles to change who he was, and that he did show different points of view. He did have these different elements in the different verses. I think he had them the clearest on his own, like as an actor. But I think I'm with you. I think it lacked some of the depth that I just think wasn't present for him in the script. How he was able to distinguish and change in his physicality without, being given these elaborate costumes or these prosthetics or whatever. I thought that was really lovely.
Rebuttal for Angelo.
I could see your points, I think.
I like the little qualifier, I think. All right, Kelly, in this category, who should have won?
Brian Tyree Henry. It was just so settled in him. He had the images. He had so many monologues that I think a lot of actors would have been pushed to feel like they had to push or cry or get angry or whatever it is. And he just sat in these. I think the character work and the relationship work, I just thought it was all really good and just really specific. I found it really impressive.
Okay, cool. I didn't choose him. Strangely enough, Jennifer Lawrence made my top 5 for Causeway, but he did not make my top 5. It's just about competition to some degree and things that land with me more. I don't really have any issues with his performance. I thought it was strong, and I'd probably put it second in this category. It's a movie that focused on the acting, which almost was one of its drawbacks because it was almost a little too airy. The performances were very solid. Angelo, Brian Tyree Henry.
No, I agree with everything Kelly said. I liked his. I love nuanced performance where it's not over the top and just kind of subtle, and you kind of get invested in the character, and he played it so well. And he's actually one of my favorite actors.
This is another one where we are going to have 3 different ones. And out of these top 5 nominees, I have one in my top 5, and it's obviously this one. In the middle of watching the performance of Barry Keoghan in The Banshees of Inisherin, I was thinking, oh, this might be one of the best performances I've seen in a while. His uniqueness and quirkiness and is grounded and motivated. He makes it so natural. It kind of reminds me of Riz Ahmed's work in Nightcrawler. Unfortunately, his screen time gets minimized, which pushed him down to 3rd place for me at some of these other performances that I'll talk about in a second. But it's still, to me, the best in this category by far. And I know everybody likes Brian Tyree Henry, but to me, Barry Keoghan was just so interesting and fascinating, complete. Angelo, Barry Keoghan in Banshees of Inisherin.
No, I like him as an actor, and he did a good job. But I do agree with you also where I did want more of him in the film.
Kelly.
Yeah, it was a great performance. I think I didn't really consider him, really, even though he's there, because he didn't have as much screen time.
Okay, so now we move on to who should have been nominated that was not for Best Supporting Actor of the Year. Let's see if she does Matilda again. Kelly, who should have been nominated that was not?
I didn't do Matilda again. I said Woody Harrelson in Triangle of Sadness.
He's very good. I have some of the same hiccups that I with Dolly D alone, and said he felt more representative of something than an actual complete character. But
it's about the style, and he was supporting the style. Honestly, though, like this was a hard one for me in terms of should have been. I felt like a lot of people who should have been nominated were nominated. I really liked him in it, and I thought he did a good job of being that key that I think it needed.
Angela, I've already commented on it. What do you got?
He didn't stand out for me in this film. I know people were talking about him, but I just thought he was just Woody.
Yeah. He was, but we love him, you know?
I know, we do.
So that was Kelly, should have been nominated. She had Woody Harrelson in Triangle of Sadness. Angelo, do you also have Woody Harrelson? Sounds like not.
No, I kind of don't. I didn't know who else would be nominated. I kind of just threw out somebody just because, and it was Paul Dano.
That's probably one of the biggest omissions that people are talking about in this category. So that's the one that everybody thinks should have been nominated that was not.
I just like him as an actor, so I kind of threw him out there.
Kelly, anything on Paul Dano?
I really like him as an actor. Didn't care for a lot about The Fabelmans. And one of them was the performances. I mean, like, I thought he was solid. He served the story. I don't feel like he was ever lying. He did have that really lovely moment in the kitchen with his son where he's telling him it's just a panic attack.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't make a lot of notes about him. I didn't really consider him. I think to Kelly's point, like, I think he was fine. I didn't think he was exceptional. I was surprised that he got a SAG nomination, just as I was surprised that Judd Hirsch got an Oscar nomination. You seem sort of on the fence about it anyway, so I don't imagine you have a lot of rebuttal.
No, I don't. He's a solid actor. Just gave another solid performance. And
you guys need to see more movies. My should have been nominated. That was not. I mean, I was an actor I've been very critical of when he was on the TV show The Newsroom, and in every other supporting role I've seen him in. I thought he was really bland and lacked detail. However, Thomas Sadoski proves me wrong as the scene stealer in Devotion. And I say scene stealer, which doesn't necessarily mean scenery chewing. He breathes such life and depth into the CO, which very easily could have been a cardboard character. I think it's a vivid and memorable portrayal. As I recall, neither of you have seen Devotion, so you don't know the work of Thomas Sadoski. Is that accurate? So then we have to figure out who's our preferences. Angela, it sounds between Ke Huy Quan and Paul Dano. You're in the Ke Huy Quan camp.
I'm in the Ke Huy Quan camp.
Woody Harrelson or Brian Tyree Henry?
Brian Tyree Henry.
You guys both have the nominees. I have Thomas Sadoski as my favorite performance of the year and Barry Keoghan as 3rd. All right. So now let's move on to the leading categories, starting with sticking with the dudes. Time for Best Actor in a Leading Role. I actually have 3 of these 5 nominees in my top 5 actors of the year, which is bizarre. But it's also the category I feel the least good about. I don't know if any of these nominees would have made my top 5 a year ago or 2 years ago. It's also the hardest category to predict. Pundits say it's a 3-way race, but I personally think it's a 2-way race between Austin Butler and Brendan Fraser, and I go back and forth. People love Brendan Fraser's narrative, the comeback story. On the flip side, I wonder if the one performance is enough to turn around the perception and erase the specter of weaker work. In other words, are people ready to say Oscar winner Brendan Fraser? Part of that doesn't sound quite right, at least not yet. Does he need another performance to truly solidify his status? Whereas Butler doesn't have that cloud over him. Historically, the Academy loves to crown the next great hope, though generally that's in the supporting categories. Again, I go back and forth. But then add to that, he's so thoroughly and perhaps iconically played an American legend. I hate to go against SAG award winners. I'm feeling Austin Butler wins this by a nose. I'm acknowledging how close this one is, and it could change any given day. Does anybody disagree? I've got Austin Butler winning this category.
Yeah.
I have Brendan Fraser but it's like you said, it's back and forth. It's hard to predict.
Fair enough. So let's see who we think should win. Kelly, you get to go first.
I think Colin Farrell should win. I have never seen him play so far from himself. I was really impressed with his character work and the truthfulness in it, but I was really impressed with just how he built in the arc and how believable it was. And I wasn't aware he was really acting. He was able to do all that work and then he just let it go and was like living in this person.
I agree with you in the sense that he normally plays, variations of himself, or seems to, except for the lobster, but I think he did that poorly. I do think this is the best performance of his career. And actually, on the top 10 last night, both Mel and Max said that he was terrible, and that was what drove him back from the movie. And I, who have been extremely critical of Colin Farrell his whole career, was suddenly defending Colin Farrell. He did not, strangely enough, he did not make my top 5, but I agree with a lot of what you said. He is doing the best acting of his career. He's complete. Yeah. He was definitely, crafting a performance that was based on something deep and meaningful. It's hard to play people that aren't that bright, and that was a big part of like the lack of educational opportunities for this character.
Yeah. And he did it without talking down to the character.
He got fully immersed. There was a lot of good choices, but there were the ever so occasional bump for me in his performance, which kept him off my top 5. It was good work, though. Angelo, anything on Colin Farrell, or is that also your choice?
Colin Farrell is not my choice. I do like Colin. It's funny because the first thing I saw Colin Farrell in was Tigerland, and I really loved his performance in that, and I thought we'd be getting more of that. So I like that he's getting back to that. Those kind of performances and characters.
And it's funny, we haven't had any clean sweeps yet. Last year's Oscar preview had 3 or 4. So it's interesting. We've had none so far tonight. Angelo, who is your choice for, out of these 5, who should win?
Who should win? I really liked Paul Mescal. I'm such a fan of sort of subtle, nuanced, emotional, but not overly emotional performances. And that's what I felt he gave here.
This is a performance I did not enjoy. I mean, it's partially the film's problem. I think he really, really fails to succeed in making the father's depression resonate. There's too much of him trying to play the good dad, which is a byproduct of Wells's choices, but the result is the performance, I think, is overrated. Like, you talk about nuance, you still need to communicate to idea and audience. Like, I'm a big fan of less is more, generally speaking, as a director, but I mean, there's also like something to be said for nothing. Like, if I'm not getting, you need enough. You need enough to communicate things, and I feel like I did not see that in his performance. Like, I think in the moments with the young girl, like when he's trying to play the good dad, I wanted to see more. I wanted to see the sadness underneath, and I just didn't. I actually feel like there is a lot of missteps in this particular movie. Whether it's Wells or him himself, I feel like he did not communicate what the narrative needed him to communicate. So I have a strong disagree about Paul Mescal. Kelly, Paul Mescal and After Sun.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you watched this movie, actually.
Well, my friend JB didn't warn me.
To be honest with you, I wasn't looking at the list and thinking about that.
It was top 18, so I made it towards the end and I realized what was happening, and then by then it was too late and I was like, well, I'm just gonna finish it. Yes, it was upsetting for me. Looking at the performance, I thought there were some really nice moments to it. I think my problem, the performance lacked, was he was just playing depressed and sad, but when someone is struggling with suicidal ideation, there's a lot more going on into that. There's a lot more factors. And so I would have liked in his performance to have seen the insecurity or the anxiety or the anger or the pressure that makes it such a unique health issue. Because if not, you're just saying, well, then he was sad and he died and he tried to be happy.
I agree with so much of that. Like, I don't know if we're just like coming around to each other. It's like so weird, the agreeing we're doing tonight. Charlotte Wells, the director, made a choice to show it from the child's perspective. And that, I think, handicapped all those things. But
he could have put it in.
I agree. I think it's a combination of the two.
Yeah,
but I
don't think it's him alone.
Right. We were constantly cutting back to the adult version of her. And I think what the film needed to do to communicate this in an effective way, I think the adult version needed to look back and be like, oh, wait a minute, there was this moment. It didn't connect with me as a kid. Like, it needed that distance from memory to really land, because sometimes you look back and you're like, oh, now I see as an adult, I understand what my father or mother or brother was going through. You know what I mean? It didn't do that. It just told the story of the child. But if you're going to do that, don't cut back to the woman, whether she's in a club or in the bathtub or wherever she is,
Yeah, because honestly, the cuts to the future did nothing for me other than confuse me.
So again, we have 3 different choices here, as much as I like Colin Farrell. I've always been able to do this. I don't know why. Films that I hate, I can still acknowledge a great performance. And so I thought Austin Butler was pretty comprehensive in Elvis in a very uneven film. I actually have it as the second best performance of the year in this category. And I also see the potential that everyone's talking about, a major talent that's burst onto the scene in a big way. I just felt so immersed in this character and all the beats. And it was a complete performance, both from an emotional point of view and a technical point of view, in terms of the gait, the way he talked, all the things. I appreciated bringing all those elements together. I've got Austin Butler. I'll let Angelo go first.
I'm on board with the Austin Butler train. I was not wanting to watch Elvis. I didn't think it would be much, but I was pleasantly surprised that I was entertained by the movie and by his performance. I think it's hard to play Elvis, and I think he did a good job.
Kelly.
I don't like it.
Okay, do you want to say why? You're the actor.
It's hard. I think some of it is like the way he talks about his performance, and some of it's the method and the technique, and it's annoying to me.
I'm not privy to any of that. Do you want to explain? I'm not sure what you mean.
I feel like he was talking about like, oh, I still feel like I'm Elvis after all these years. I don't know. I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm mixing it with someone else. I just it was fine. It was okay.
I don't know what he said, or I mean, I just watched the movie. I didn't read any interviews or anything.
To your point, unlike you, I might not be separating the performance from the movie. Well, I couldn't stand it. I hated watching that movie.
Tomorrow night's our 1947 in review. And when I think about Santa Claus performances, I'll always think about Edmund Gwenn in Miracle on 34th Street. Yeah. And so when I think about Elvis, I think from now on, I'm going to think about Austin Butler in Elvis. I think there's something to that, to capturing that versus other Elvises that I've seen. And that's where I landed. Angelo, who should have been nominated, that was not.
Ralph Fiennes in The Menu.
Can't disagree that it's a good performance. And actually, to be honest, I had him in my top 5 for most of the year until I saw some of these other performances.
Ralph Fiennes is such a good actor. And in this movie, he played a likable villain.
Like any other character in that movie, he had some depth, and he communicated that depth. For those of you that watched the Oscar preview, I think it was maybe 2020, I had Ralph Fiennes as the best actor for the year for a movie called The Dig. I don't know if it was 2020 or 2021.
It was 2020. So
it was
good.
2020. It's funny, I've named him, should have been nominated in the past before. Kelly, anything on Ralph Fiennes?
It was a good performance. His dialect work kind of, if I'm being really nitpicky, bothered me.
Oh, interesting. That is a technical part of the performance. We talk about it all the time, marrying the emotional with the technical. I mean, that's important.
Yeah, it was inconsistent.
So that's Angelo. He's got Ralph Fiennes in The Menu. Menu's come up a couple times tonight. Kelly, your choice for should have been nominated, that was not.
Not happy with it, but it is. Sam Rockwell, who's one of my favorites, and See How They Run. I liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed See How They Run.
I love a good detective mystery. He had a nice balance of knowing the genre, but playing a character who was fully formed and had issues and still was able to do his job. I think that's one of our favorite things about the genre, right? Is the detective has their own issues, but they can still be smarter than all of us in a way. And it was fun. I liked the work he did in terms of having the relationships to other characters. I thought it was a really strong performance in a movie that was fun, if not always consistent.
Yeah, I mean, he's not one of my favorite actors. I'm frequently critical of him, but I do think it's a great comic performance. He really leaned into it. What I liked about the movie is it was so self-aware. Not only was it fun, but it was very aware of what it was, aware of what it wanted to be. And from a directorial point of view, I think that's an achievement because it was so consistent. A lot of the cast was on board with that. It's funny because for a time, she didn't make my top 5, but I shortlisted Saoirse Ronan.
I thought about her too. She was really good. Sam
Rockwell, I thought, was really strong. I think the acting overall was fun because the actors seemed like to be having such a good time. Everybody, Harris Dickinson, they just seemed to be really digging into this fun material. Adrian Brody.
They all have these fully formed characters, but they were serving this kind of, not quite farce, or satire, but they were this heightened kind of aware. However we want to say that.
It's a very complete comic performance.
Yeah.
In a year with 100 performances, I didn't shortlist it. I Saoirse Ronan for a time, but it's not. I can't say it's a bad performance by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't really have anything to say about it. I thought it was a fun performance as well. I did enjoy the movie. Nothing stood out to me. from his performance, I think Saoirse Ronan stood out more for me.
It's time for my choice for Best Actor of the Year, and should have been nominated that was not. And so I've been talking about these complete performances like I did with Austin Butler. For me, and it's a movie I'm bringing up for the third time that I know they didn't see. Daniel Jimenez Cacho, I think, is extraordinary in Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths. He fully captures the struggles of a midlife crisis in nuanced, lived-in ways. In the film inspired by Fellini, as I mentioned earlier, he very easily could have tried to mimic the cool, buried angst of Marcello Mastroianni, but instead he makes this his own, a unique portrait of an artist and a journalist with more questions than answers. I'd also like to call out the subtle shifts he made in the fantasy sequences versus the reality. I think to some level it spoke to that dichotomy between how we perceive ourselves, how we are perceived by others, and how we wish to be perceived. I think it's some really interesting work. Neither of these guys saw Bardo, to the point that Kelly actually left the room. I go to this shot, she's gone. She doesn't even want to listen to what I have to say.
I'm so sorry. It's a Zane thing. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Give my best to Zane. Tell her we're live on camera right now. So yeah. I assume you guys have nothing you'd like to add as far as Bardo is concerned.
I just haven't seen it.
Yeah. Yep. So Angelo, so you've got between who are your choices? You have Paul Mescal,
Ray Fiennes and Mescal, yeah. And
Ray Fiennes. Who do you have?
Ray Fiennes.
Kelly, between Sam Rockwell and Colin Farrell. I assume you have Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell.
I've got Daniel Jimenez Cacho 1 and Austin Butler 2. So Daniel Jimenez Cacho is my favorite performance by an actor this year. All right. So moving on, guys. One more acting category, and this is a tough one. Best Actress in a Leading Role. As much as I liked a lot of these performances, I only have 2 of the 5 in my top 5 because I've got some performances that I think are extraordinary. Once again, SAG threw a wrench in this one. Michelle Yeoh is rising and rising fast, beating Blanchett for the first time at the SAG Awards. However, and I think Blanchett holds on as Academy members tend to spread things out. This is the award I think they're going to give to Tar. It's very close. I'm guessing Blanchett. Most odds makers are guessing Blanchett. Does anybody disagree that Blanchett will win?
I will disagree, but
you're on the Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, it's a tight thing too.
Yeah, same.
Some disagreement. And so in terms of should win, Angelo's going to go first. And it sounds like he's going to say Michelle Yeoh here as well.
I will say Michelle Yeoh, yes. So she was given the opportunity to play drama, to do her comedy, which we haven't really seen. Obviously, we've seen her martial arts, and I think she did it pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, can I just go back to my response to the Ke Huy Quan analysis and just say Ibid? In the sense that it's a lot of the same things. She played a lot of different things, but a lot of them lack dimension, and that's a script thing. But we're evaluating some really great performances here. In my mind, this is a great group of actresses, a great category, and some great performances. In comparison, those are the differentiators amongst great performances is that I felt like she was playing a lot of less dimensional characters, to serve the overall story, which, I have some issues with anyway. So, Kelly, what do you think about Michelle Yeoh, or is that also your choice?
No.
Tell me about Michelle Yeoh then.
It's a good performance. It's a great performance. I can see why people would vote for her. I agree. I think I've already said it similarly. For me, it wasn't transcendent. And I feel like I saw a performance that just completely
Yeah, no, I do. We still don't have a clean sweep, which is shocking to me. And it looks like we won't, because there's just director and picture left. And I think we all know who Angelo is going to pick anyway in those categories. So I just think we're not going to have any clean sweeps tonight, which might be the first time ever. And we're going to have 3 different ones here, I'm pretty sure, because Kelly and I both think that there's a transcendent performance in this category, but I'm pretty sure it sounds like we disagree on which they are, although I think I like the performance she's going to pick. Kelly, who do you have as who should win in this category?
Cate Blanchett. She's just incredible. I was just watching her. She's just playing actions. She has these long speech and her specificity on it. And she's action, action, action. You know what I'm talking about?
I do, yes.
Yeah. She's so clear on what it is, but we're still not clear. She's made strong choices, even though we're, as the audience, at times did she do this? Did this happen? What's going on here? But she knows what's going on there as actor. I loved all those choices, just from her body movement to her voice, the subtlety. It was great.
It's an exquisite performance, exquisite. And yet, talk about a year. It didn't make my top 5. I bumped it out at number 6. And that's how good the year was from my point of view. And it's It's wonderful, wonderful work. Can you like it's 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like when we were doing this show, we were struggling to find good female performances, and now I feel like it's so flipped, and I hope it's a sign, because years ago we were talking about the lack of good female roles. This year, if there's any indication that maybe there's hope, because like there's just such great work, and she's great. She's just really great, and she's always great. I would also argue, like they're different age groups. Like we talked about Meryl Streep as the GOAT, but Cate Blanchett is this generation's Meryl Streep. Like she is one of the best of all time, and certainly I think in my age group, I'm a little older than you. Angelo, anything on Cate Blanchett?
No, I loved her performance in Charge. She kept me in this film. It was a tough decision to not pick her.
The performance that I find transcendent in this category, and the best of the year, I'll reveal now, this is my favorite performance of the year, is one that Kelly has intimated that she hates. And it sounds like both of you have Yeoh and Blanchett ahead of this performance. I think Michelle Williams is exquisite in the best performance of the year to me in The Fabelmans, and a movie that I did not like. I just think it's so carefully crafted, both emotionally and technically. I think it's a wonder to behold and will stick with me for years to come. I just thought it was such like a lived-in, detailed performance that added so much to a character that could have been two-dimensional. It's one of those performances that to me you see the difference between what's on the page and what she brings to the table. Like it just elevated every scene. I just thought it was extraordinary. Angelo, I will save Kelly for later. What do you got?
Michelle Williams actually was the highlight of The Fabelmans.
Kelly.
I am just so relieved that you did not say Ana de Armas. So thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about Michelle Williams. She's one of my favorite actresses, actually. My Week with Marilyn, that's one of my favorite performances. I think she is. Something about The Fabelmans in general just really didn't stick with me. It kind of even rubbed me wrong. I don't want to watch a mom with mental health issues. Like for me, it's not fun. So I'm willing to say like that may have just shut me down from the performance.
The thing about mental health that we've talked about, through your nonprofit and various things, like there is gradations. Like we all have mental health issues. It's something that's come up a lot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like to some degree. And like, so what I appreciate about the mental health issues is they weren't extreme. You know what I mean? Like they felt like so vivid and real and something that was, like tailored to some degree. Like it was like, constructed in a way where, there could have been a way that she just really overplayed those things. It felt like she made a specific choice to be on a scale. It felt like someone struggling, but keeping it together to some degree. I appreciate it wasn't balls to the wall, like crazy woman.
It wasn't a bad performance by any means. I don't think she's capable. She's fantastic.
For me, like when evaluating performance, like I'm just like seeing all this nuance and detail, like, like just some really interesting choices consistently and just like craft. And also like the way that she navigated the arc of the character. Yeah. There's some really interesting things that she does that brought it above Cate Blanchett and some of the others for me. All right, it's time to talk about who should have been nominated that was not. And Kelly, you get to go first for this one.
Jennifer Lawrence.
That's crazy.
I know. She's great.
Yeah. Jennifer Lawrence is my third favorite performance. I'm not going to mention her, so I'm so glad you did, because I have one ahead of her.
Right ahead of her. Yeah, well, I'm mentioning her for us. She brings the character and she understands and she listens really well and she's very present and I think embodies the person.
It's not like a showy character, right? Like it's it's a very honest, real person, and like and you believe her. You don't see the acting, as like people like to say.
I like the performance more than any of her other performances, and I thought it was like her best one I've seen.
I agree with that as well. There is a lot of agreement with Kelly and I. We have to reevaluate our relationship. I didn't expect that level of reality, that level of we could all drink now verisimilitude. Like it was really
verisimilitude.
I feel like she was like comfortable. It was like nice to see her just comfortable being.
Angelo, Jennifer Lawrence.
I'm in agreement with I'm not a huge Jennifer Lawrence fan, but with this character, like I was so glad I didn't see Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Very cool. So now we will move on to Angelo's choice for should have been nominated that was not.
Probably one of the bigger snubs that everybody said, but I'm going with Danielle Deadweiler in Till. Oh, you don't like this. I kind of was invested in her performance. She does cry a lot. Because of her performance, I was invested in this film.
Kelly earlier was talking about biopics and, true life stories and things like that. And on top of that, this is a message movie. And it falls into a lot of the traps that a lot of movies of its ilk do. Everything goes a hair too far. And I admit, Danielle Deadweiler is clearly very talented. We talked about Less is More earlier, and histrionics were just so much. There are certain moments didn't seem to call for it. And at some point, I'm just like, this is not feeling like honest to me. The whole movie to me feels like this overwrought message movie biopic, like that really was squeezing every last bit of manipulative sentiment that it could. Her performance is in line with that. I would have been disappointed if she were nominated. Not that I want to make an argument for Ana de Armas. I don't. I do think the director needed to dial her back because some moments I think needed to be a little more subtle, and subtlety be damned in this particular movie. Kelly, it sounds like you didn't even see it.
No.
It was almost like a surreal thing where she knew it was going to happen and she was always worried. And I feel like that garnered her internal crying all the time. She was just so worried internal. About it, but I excuse it because of the rest of her performance for me.
The majority of people, like if they had to name one snub, it'd be her. You're certainly in good company. I think a lot of that has to do with societal issues and not necessarily the performance. I do have some major issues with that movie and that performance. So my choice for Best Actress in a leading role that should have been nominated, it's my second best of the year, the one I have just ahead of Jennifer Lawrence. And it's probably from a movie that these guys didn't see because it's one of those indies. I was consistently engaged in the character study element of the film Return to Seoul, largely due to the tremendous performance by Park Ji-min, who delivered surprising moment after surprising moment, but each one believable. She makes silences as evocative as any other did this year. When she does speak, she can do so in 3 different languages, again, combining the emotional element of performance and the technical element of performance. I think it's some really impressive work. Park Ji-min in Return to Seoul. Did anybody see Return to Seoul? Nobody. All right. So the cheese stands alone. Like, man, I saw it with my girlfriend and she was like, that is some of the best acting I've seen. And I'm like, yeah, that's some really, really great work. So now we got to figure out who their preference is. So Angela, for you, Michelle Yeoh or Danielle Deadweiler?
Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. So is it Cate Blanchett or Jennifer Lawrence?
Cate Blanchett.
And for me, it is Michelle Williams over Park Ji-min. All right. So now it's time to move on. We got 2 more categories left, y'all. Busting through it. Let's see how we do. And obviously, the penultimate category, it's Best Director. I have 0 of these 5 nominees and my top directors of the year. In terms of who will win predictions, there's incredible momentum for Everything Everywhere All at Once. The Daniels won the DGA. I think they're going to also win here. That's why I don't think they're going to win screenplay. Does anybody think the Daniels don't win here?
They're going to win.
Does anybody think they should win?
I think they should win. The technical aspects of the film, the fantastical vision, utilizing the choreography of the martial arts.
Obviously, I'm not a fan of the film, so I'm not gonna choose these guys. All the things I talked about performances, falls on direction to some degree. The craft elements, I can acknowledge. Each universe was visually compelling, distinct, and detailed. Themes, I understand it was trying to be about something, but I think it missed. I think the things that it wanted to be about was hollow. I do fault the directors for that. I understand from a technical point of view, the wizardry and all the things it tried to achieve. It's ambitious and creative in some elements, but I think it missed in so many others. And, to me, the basics of film direction are the things that they missed. And they're distracting us with all the other things. Kelly, Everything Everywhere All at Once in terms of directing.
There were some missteps. There were some tonal things that didn't always work.
There's a slight possibility Kelly and I will agree about who we think should win in this out of these 5, but maybe not. Kelly, who do you got should win out of these 5?
I might change my mind in half an hour, but I'm going to go with Tar.
And we are indeed agreed. I also have Todd Field for Tar should win in this category. The thing that stuck out to me most about Tar was the controlled, considered, and intelligent direction by Todd Field. I was consistently impressed by the use, but not overuse of camera movement. The classroom scene, which was all one shot, springs to mind. But then there's significant moments of restraint. Everything's motivated, though sometimes uncomfortable and unpleasant. He told the story, landed a lot of different themes. And as I said, I have 5 other directors higher than him. I have him in 6th. But amongst these nominees, this is the strongest, and it's quite good work. His best film to me by far, out of only just a few films, obviously. What I talked about earlier with the Daniels is the basics of film direction. This idea of scene work, that dance between what the actors are doing when the blocking and how the camera captures that. That's what Todd Field is very good at. Kelly?
I mean, that's pretty much how I feel. I was really struck by how he used sound.
Really great point.
I felt like everything was deliberate. Every scene felt like perfectly mapped out. He succeeded in telling the story and using all the elements, all the tools he had to support that story.
Angelo, Todd Field for Tar.
I love Todd Field as a director. But I agree with everything you guys say. Just not my choice.
So should have been nominated. That was not. Angelo.
I'm going back to The Menu.
Mark Mylod, yeah.
Yeah.
I talked about that earlier. That's an example of great direction, and a great way to handle satire. He did not make my top 5 eventually because I saw so many more films, and Todd Field would be ahead of him. I was impressed with how he handled the material that I had questions about.
Yeah, and also what I liked about was the pacing of the film. It's still mystery. It's kind of told in a fun way.
Kelly and I were just talking about the idea of control and feeling like you're in good hands. That's how I felt with Mark Mylod in The Menu. Kelly, Mark Mylod for The Menu.
Honestly, yeah. No, I think I just changed my should have been.
Are you officially going to change it?
I take it back. I'm just going to stick to Matilda.
You talked about it during the screenplay, actually. You talked about direction a little bit. Tell me what else you liked about Matthew Warchus' work.
I thought he was able to pull pretty solid performances out of a lot of children, which can be difficult.
That's why Patrick chose 400 Blows for direction in 1959 in review.
I think a lot of times, especially with musicals, because it's from the stage, they don't make it cinematic. And he really went that way and embraced it, made it cinematic, and made those choices that really served the story and it being told in that form.
I obviously haven't seen the film, but that's exactly my problem with a lot of theatrical transfers like that, is they don't make it cinematic. So if he did, then that sounds like exactly what I would be looking for. And Angelo hasn't seen it either. Kelly's already referenced my choice for Best Director of the Year, although she suggested that she had some issues with the film, except for the things she chose it for. But to me, again, looking at the basics of film direction and talk about control, we talk about feeling in good hands. To me, Empire of Light is a masterclass in the art of film direction. From Sam Mendes, who, speaking of Matthew Warchus, Sam Mendes is the rare director who successfully transitioned from theater to film, and his films are now much more cinematic than the film he won the Oscar for, American Beauty, which is a great, great film. But now his work is exquisitely cinematic. One word I use on the show a lot is scene work. Even this segment, I've used it a lot. What I define as a relationship between the camera, the actors, and the blocking. How those choices interact and how we make meaning when we make those choices. Mendes always puts his camera in what it seems to be exactly the right place to capture all the pain, the joy, the love, the lust, the hate, the shame, the struggle, and the illnesses in the film. Some of the best direction to me is often when it doesn't call attention to itself. And that happens when all the choices are motivated by the moments, the beats, and the themes. To me, that is the true joy of Empire of Light. Not to mention another transcendent performance by Olivia Colman, which also I had ahead of Cate Blanchett by a hair. The themes of the film are mostly obvious: race relations, prejudice, mental illness, but also freedom. On some level, the movie theater in the film is representative of a prison that traps the characters in their current life situations, but it's really their own minds that are their jailers in very different ways. I think the film uncovers the seemingly obvious but often more nuanced difficulties in escaping said jailers, your own fears and perceptions. It was a top 5 film for me, as I mentioned earlier, and I think the best direction of the year when looking at the art of film direction, which I teach now, and so I'm very specific about it. The scene work, all the things. Sam Mendes in Empire of Light. Kelly, you did see it.
Mm-hmm. I watched it last night. At times, I didn't know why the camera was doing what it was doing.
That's interesting, because that's the opposite of what I was feeling.
I felt at times, I just was like, why? There were some movements and some shots that kind of took me out of it, because I was like, what are you trying to tell me? There was a lot I actually really liked about that movie, and Olivia Colman's performance was one of the things. There were parts that were a little muddy or unclear in the storytelling.
It's just, for all the agreement we had tonight, I had the exact opposite reaction. I felt like I was in such good hands. Angelo, Sam Mendes for Empire of Light.
Good choice. Yeah, can't rebuttal Sam Mendes, really.
Now it's time to choose our out of our 2 choices, who's the best director of the year. So for Kelly, it's Matthew Warchus or Todd Field.
Todd Field.
For Angelo, it was Mark Mylod or the Daniels.
Mark Mylod. And
for me, it's Sam Mendes over Todd Field. So those are the 3 that we have as our favorite directors of the year. I just want to point out for you the next category that I'm on my 2nd beer, and I'm almost done that as well. So, it's a little crazy. I didn't open it on camera, so I just wanted to acknowledge it. as we go on to the big one, the big kahuna. It's time for Best Picture of the Year. How's this happening? 2 of them made my top 10 last night. If they had 5 nominees like they did in the old days, only one of them would make my top 5. In fact, it was my number 5 film, and we'll get to that momentarily. The preferential voting system leaves some hope for something as universally admired as All Quiet on the Western Front or even Triangle of Sadness. Still, I'm betting Everything Everywhere All at Once is just way too strong at this point. I'd be surprised if they argue. Does anybody think Everything Everywhere All at Once is not going to win Best Picture?
Wow. No, it's going to win.
I think it'll win.
Angelo, I think we're going to assume you think it should.
Of the 10 nominees, yes.
Anything else you want to say about it?
It was that little movie that did.
Gosh, I've said a lot of negative things about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Out of these nominees, it was my 6th favorite. What I'm hearing from a lot of people is, they're looking for something different, something unique. There's overall in the industry a movement of style over substance. I'm not saying that there's not substance in Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's an attempt at substance, but I do think they miss it. That's for me personally, and that's if I had to summarize the theme of what I have to say about it, that would summarize it, I think, nicely.
For me, it wasn't the best movie of the year, but I think if it wins, it's still a good thing.
I hear you, but that's why we do this show, to understand what we think is the best picture of the year. Kelly, I think there's a 54% shot we're going to have an agreement on what should win here. We're not. Okay. What do you think should win?
I'm going to go with Banshees, and I'm going to tell you why. Because even though I think Tar was better directed, the story of Banshees itself and the themes in that, they just resonated with me more. The themes of Banshees were just stronger for me.
Kelly, I think you underestimate me. I also have Banshees of Inisherin as the film that should win this category.
Oh my God, JP!
For pretty much all the reasons that you said, like ultimately, story is king. This is one of the better stories of the year. It was my number 5 film in my top 10 last night, and the entire ensemble helps a lot. They are excellent. Even Colin Farrell, in a year whose films explore so much darkness, I couldn't help feel that this play tracks the slow decline of kindness and compassion, almost suggesting that modern sensibilities make it more of a weakness than an asset. I also think it explores depression and interpersonal connection and the connection between the two and how much our self-worth do we put in the hands of others. And that brings me to perhaps its most impactful and overreaching theme to me, codependency. Do we define ourselves by how others see us or by how we see ourselves? In spite of the lack of cinematicness, which is why I did not choose it for Best Director, I was riveted by the characters, by the story, the writing, and that made it one of the top films of the year for me and the strongest of these Best Picture nominees. Like I said, my number 5 film of the year.
I'm just kind of delighted that we're for once kind of agreeing.
Angelo, anything you want to add or subtract?
Nothing to add or subtract. You're making me watch it again.
That's kind of fun. It's on HBO Max. That's what we think should win out of these categories. It is not my favorite film of the year. Actually, let's do this in advance. If you had number 1 films of the year, is it Banshees and Everything Everywhere All at Once, or is it what you're about to say?
I think mine is what I'm about to say, which I think you all know what it is.
Okay, and Kelly, is yours Banshees or what you're about to say?
Banshees.
Banshees. All right. So what she's about to say is her second or third favorite. And for me, it is it's what's coming up. So Angela and I are going to reveal our favorite films of the year, but Kelly, it's Banshees, and her second or third favorite is
Vengeance.
I should have seen that coming. It's been a while since we first saw Vengeance. The only 2 films that have come up that I have not seen are Vengeance and Matilda. It's just they keep coming up in your category.
I just really hope you watch them.
You didn't see Vengeance either, right, Angela?
I did not see Vengeance, no.
All right, so now we're going to find out what Angelo's favorite movie of 2022 was that he thinks should have been nominated for Best Picture. And let's just assume, I'm going to guess here, Angelo, if that's okay, that it's going to be The Menu?
It is going to be The Menu.
Yay!
Pleasantly surprised of how much I enjoyed this movie because I had no expectations whatsoever. Blown away by the story and just the way they told it and the direction, and I love the actors in it. I think you're right, JB, because I think there are a lot of characters, they're more caricatures. I appreciated the dark satire of food culture, so that's my favorite movie.
The caricature element of it is what really held it back. It's sort of like story-wise a contrived gimmick with a handful of chuckles along the way. I sort of likened it to an American version of Parasite to some degree in terms of what it has to say about privilege and all the things. For all its allegorical potential, The Menu winds up mostly being about filling your life with what you love and asking what the point is if you don't. That was an interesting takeaway, but as far as themes go, it comes in a little late from a writing point of view. Like everything else in the script, it was overly controlled to the point of being on rails. I just didn't think the movie was Oscar-worthy for me, but I do admit that it brought more to the table, if you will, than a lot of other films of 2022. Angelo, I don't know if there's anything to rebut there.
No, I don't. No.
What happens next? Let's see who's going next here.
Number one.
We did Kelly, so it's time for a movie that has not come up yet. That is my number one movie of 2022. So if you watch the top 10, you know what's coming up, but it has not come up tonight yet. And for the first non-pandemic year, my number one film of the year is one that I did not see in theaters. I floored my fellow panelists last year when my number one film turned out to be an animated film. It seemed to be an anomaly, but here I am again with a film that is nominated for the Oscar for Best Animated Film, even though I questioned the placement in the category because it is only partially animated. So you probably figured out that my number one film of 2022 is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. It started out to be a small, cute idea, but whether it knows it or not, it sort of becomes everything. I think its focus was a childlike perception on change and coming to terms with the ever-evolving world around us. The most seismic changes have to do with grief and coping with the loss of loved ones, in whatever form that takes. The film also bluntly discusses community. What it really becomes about is connection. Both Dean and Marcel start the film dealing with and suffering from loss and a significant change, and both benefit from the relationship that they forge. Marcel can't replace a separated wife per se, but he can fill something of a hole in Dean's heart, and vice versa. By extension of that, the film almost inadvertently becomes about the documentary form itself, particularly as it relates to the relationship between filmmaker and subject. It's a tenuous relationship because the blurring of those lines can also distort the lines between truth and fiction. It can dispel the purity of the documentary, which defeats the purpose. But as a work of fiction, since it's a mockumentary, no danger of that in this film per se. But I think the story suggests that potential in an interesting way. I dragged my feet to this one and once again surprised, if not swept away, emotionally affected and cerebrally challenged. Like I said, everything. It's everything you want a movie to do. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. It hasn't come up at all. Have you guys seen this film?
No.
I've not, but I've heard about it.
I haven't even heard of it.
Oh, really? It's such a Kelly.
Yeah.
It seems like such a Kelly film.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I didn't hear about it.
So they don't know my best film of the year, guys. So we're just going to move right along. So those are our. I think so. What we determined is my best film is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. For Kelly, it's Banshees of Inisherin. For Angelo, it's The Menu. Closing up, but we always do a lightning round for the craft categories, and these guys can opine or not because I don't ask them to dig into that deep, but they're welcome to opine. I'm just going to go through what will win, and should have been nominated in a lot of the craft categories. First, makeup. What will win? I think The Whale. What should win? Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. What should have been nominated? An indie called Neptune Frost out of Africa. If you watch it, you'll know exactly why I say that. Costume design. What will win? I think Everything Everywhere All at Once will win. What should win? Babylon. What should have been nominated? Again, Neptune Frost. And just check it out and you will see. Animated feature, what will win? Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. What should win? Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, obviously. Production design, what will win and should win? Babylon. What should have been nominated? Glass Onion. Obviously dislike the movie quite a bit, but I mean, that set was ridiculous. Editing, what will win? This is where Top Gun Maverick wins its sole award of the evening. What should win? Believe it or not, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Which should have been nominated. The Russo brothers film The Gray Man, which didn't get talked about a lot, and it's not that great a film, but editing, it's an achievement. Documentary, what will win and should win, Navalny on HBO Max. What should have been nominated, Stutz. Jonah Hill's documentary about his therapist is actually quite a special film if anybody got a chance to look at it. Song, what will win, Not To, from RRR, will win. What should win, I actually like Rihanna's song Lift Me Up from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. What should have been nominated, the song Time from the film Amsterdam, which I called last night my worst film of 2022, but the song is actually pretty good. And in terms of score, best original score, what will win and should win, Justin Hurwitz's score for Babylon, which should have been nominated. Once again, Devotion has a score that I thought was excellent that should have been nominated. Do you guys have anything out of any of those craft categories that you want to bring up or I didn't bring up that you thought I should?
No. I agree with Navalny.
All right. So, guys, how do you feel about the evening overall? Overall thoughts?
It was fun.
To watch more.
Yeah. Also, I feel like I'm going to go watch a couple more movies.
What are you going to watch first?
I already forgot. Marcel.
Angela, what about you? What's your next step here?
Banshees of Inisherin.
Are you going to rewatch Banshees of
I'll
Inisherin?
rewatch Banshees.
What did he miss? You wondering what he missed? All right, guys. So this is our second of 3 nights of our finale episodes. Obviously, we did top 10 last night, Oscar preview night, and tomorrow night we hope to see you again for our 1947 review. And it's a similar format, except we're going to re-examine the Oscar categories from 1947, 75 years ago this Oscar year. Devin and Jim will be on with me for that show. So hope you'll enjoy us. We watched a lot of movies from 1947 and have a lot of interesting insights to share with you. Guys, say goodbye to the audience.
Oh, just say goodbye.
Goodbye. Happy Oscars.
Bye.
That was so awkward. All right.
Yeah.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting of the No Name Cinema Society is adjourned. We'll see you tomorrow night.